The massive alien warship drifted through the darkness of space like a predator closing in on its prey. Commander Vexkar stood on the bridge, his multiple eyes fixed on the blue planet displayed on the holographic screen before him. Another world to conquer. Another species to subjugate. Behind him, 10,000 warships stretched across the void in perfect formation. The collective Armada had crushed hundreds of civilizations across the galaxy. This would be no different. Report, Vexkar commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge. Subcommander Thrall manipulated the sensor controls with his clawed hands. The planet shows primitive development, Commander. Radio waves, basic satellites, chemical rockets. They have barely reached their own moon. Vexkar's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his kind. Defenses? Minimal. A few orbital stations. Perhaps 20 military vessels scattered throughout their system. Nothing that could threaten even a single ship of ours. Thrall paused, scanning through more data. They call themselves humans. Do they have weapons capable of harming us? Kinetic missiles, primitive lasers, nuclear warheads. All easily countered by our shields. Commander, this world will fall within days. Vexkar nodded slowly. It was always the same. Every species thought themselves mighty until the collective arrived. Then they understood how small they truly were in the vast universe. Send the standard ultimatum. All frequencies. The communication officer activated the broadcast array. The message transmitted across every radio, television, and computer network on Earth below. It was simple as all such messages were: surrender your world and serve the collective or be destroyed. Vexkar did not expect a response. They never responded at first. There would be panic, chaos, governments scrambling to understand what was happening. Then would come the pitiful attempts at negotiation, the begging, the offers of resources in exchange for mercy. There would be no mercy. 4 billion kilometers away, deep beneath a mountain in Switzerland, Admiral James Richardson sat in a reinforced bunker that served as Earth's unified military command center. The room was filled with screens showing data from across the solar system. Around a large metal table sat the most important military leaders on the planet. General Patricia Hayes studied the enemy formation on her display. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly, her face calm despite the situation. She had been preparing for this moment for 15 years. Colonel David Morrison leaned forward, his weathered hands gripping the edge of the table. They're exactly where the projections said they would be. Dr. Robert Clark, the civilian scientist among them, adjusted his glasses and pulled up technical readings. Their sensor sweeps are following predictable patterns. They're scanning for threats based on their own technology base. James looked at each of them in turn. And they're seeing what we want them to see? Exactly what we want them to see, Robert confirmed. Our spoofing network is feeding them sensor data that matches a primitive civilization. Old satellites, weak defenses, scattered military assets. Everything calibrated to make them overconfident. Patricia pulled up a timeline. 3 weeks until they reach Mars orbit. That's our trigger point. James stood and walked to a large screen showing the outer solar system. Tiny dots represented the enemy Armada, moving steadily inward like a slowly tightening noose. 15 years ago we intercepted one of their scout probes near Neptune. A lucky catch by one of our deep space monitoring stations. David nodded. That probe told us everything. Their technology, their tactics, their standard invasion procedures. It gave us time. Time to prepare, Patricia added. Time to build what we needed without them knowing we even existed. Robert brought up another display showing the Kuiper belt, the asteroid belt, and various points throughout the solar system. To the untrained eye, it looked empty. Activation codes have been sent. Every platform is running cold start sequences now. By the time they reach Mars, we'll be ready. James returned to his seat. Status of civilian evacuations? Complete, David reported. Every mining colony, every research station, every orbital facility that can't be hidden has been emptied. The crews are safely on Earth or in the underground shelters on the Moon. Good. James pressed a button on his console. A communication window opened, connecting him to military commanders across the planet and throughout the solar system. All units, this is command. Operation Mousetrap is now active. Maintain radio silence. Wait for the signal. Patricia looked at the advancing enemy fleet. They have no idea what's waiting for them. That's the point, James said quietly. They think we're primitive. They think we're helpless. They think this will be easy. He paused, his jaw tightening. Let them think that for 3 more weeks. Then we show them what humans do to invaders. The room fell silent as they watched the enemy armada creep closer. Above them, hidden throughout the solar system, thousands of weapons platforms continued their secret activation. Humanity had learned long ago that sometimes the best defense was patience, preparation, and letting your enemy underestimate you completely. The trap was set. Now they just had to wait. The collective armada moved through the asteroid belt like a slow-moving tide of metal and power. Commander Vexcar watched the rocks drift past his viewport, some as small as houses, others the size of mountains. His sensors showed scattered mining equipment, abandoned habitats, and simple drilling platforms. The humans fled, Thrall observed, checking the readings from a nearby asteroid. These colonies were evacuated weeks ago. They saw us coming and ran like frightened animals. Vexcar studied one of the larger asteroids as they passed. It was riddled with tunnels and bore the marks of mining operations. Empty. Lifeless. Fear is a useful tool. It makes conquest easier when they have already given up hope. What Vexcar could not see were the careful modifications inside that asteroid. The hollowed chambers packed with explosives. The magnetic accelerators built into the rock itself. The targeting systems hidden beneath layers of ice and stone, powered down to avoid detection. What he could not know was that this asteroid and 300 others like it had been turned into massive weapons over the past decade. Each one aimed. Each one waiting. The Armada continued forward, crossing the belt without incident. Thrall marked it on their charts as clear of threats. In the command bunker on Earth, Admiral James Richardson watched the enemy fleet advance deeper into the trap. The main display showed their formation spreading out as they approached Mars orbit, confident and unguarded. There in the kill zone, General Patricia Hayes announced, checking the tactical overlay. Red circles marked the positions of hidden weapons platforms throughout the region. The enemy ships were surrounded, though they did not know it yet. Colonel David Morrison pulled up system status reports. All strike packages report ready. Kinetic platforms are charged and locked on targets. Drone swarms are in position, holding silent running mode. Dr. Robert Clark monitored the enemy sensor sweeps from his station. Their shields are at minimum power. Point defense systems on standby. They're not expecting any resistance at all. He looked up at James. They think they've already won. James felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. In the next few hours, humanity would either survive or fall. There would be no second chances. No do-overs. Everything depended on the next order he gave. Patricia stood beside him. The crews are ready. Every platform, every satellite, every drone. 15 years of preparation comes down to this. David checked the enemy formation one more time. They're reaching Mars orbit now. Optimal firing position in 10 minutes. James watched the clock count down. Each second felt like an hour. He thought about the billions of people on Earth below, unaware that their fate was being decided in the cold darkness of space. He thought about the hidden weapons surrounding the enemy, invisible and patient. 5 minutes, David called out. The enemy fleet began to slow, taking up positions around Mars. They were preparing to broadcast their final ultimatum to Earth. Vexcar would demand surrender one last time before beginning his attack. 2 minutes. James took a deep breath. Around him, every person in the command center was silent, focused, waiting. This was the moment that would define humanity's future among the stars. 1 minute. On his screen, James could see the lead enemy ships powering up their weapon systems. They were getting ready to show Earth what would happen if they refused to surrender. They were preparing to destroy a few cities as an example. To break human spirit before the invasion began. 30 seconds. Patricia's hand hovered over her console, ready to transmit the attack order to every platform simultaneously. David had his finger on the activation switch for the kinetic weapons. Robert was monitoring the enemy shields, looking for any sign they had detected the trap. 10 seconds. James looked at each of them one final time. There was no fear in their eyes. Only determination. Only the cold resolve of soldiers who knew what had to be done. Execute. Patricia pressed the button. The signal flashed out at the speed of light, reaching every hidden platform, every concealed satellite, every dormant weapon system scattered throughout the Mars region. For a single heartbeat, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to explode. Railgun rounds that had been accelerating for the past minute reached their targets. Traveling at nearly 1/3 the speed of light, the tungsten rods punched through the lead enemy ships before their sensors could even register the attack. Capital ships simply vanished, transformed from mighty warships into clouds of debris in microseconds. The weaponized asteroids fired next. Massive explosions propelled thousands of metal fragments in precisely calculated patterns, shredding through the enemy formation like a shotgun blast through paper. Laser platforms that had looked like old commercial satellites revealed their true purpose, beams of concentrated energy slicing through ships that had let their shields drop. Direct hits across the entire formation, David reported, his voice steady despite the violence unfolding on the screens. Enemy fleet cohesion breaking down. Vexcar's voice suddenly burst across their intercepted communications, screaming orders in his alien language. Panic, confusion, disbelief. James allowed himself the smallest of smiles. Now they know. Now they understand what it means to underestimate humanity. Commander Vexcar's world had become chaos. Alarms screamed throughout the bridge of the Dominion's fist. Explosions bloomed across his view screen like deadly flowers. Ships that had been part of his mighty armada moments ago were now nothing but expanding clouds of metal and fire. Shields up. All weapons online, he roared, gripping his command chair as the ship shuddered from a nearby impact. Thrall worked frantically at his console, his claws clicking rapidly across the controls. Commander, our shields are ineffective. These weapons are pure kinetic strikes. Mass and velocity. Our energy shields cannot stop them. Another massive warship exploded off their port side, close enough that debris pelted their hull. Vexcar felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. Fear. Return fire. Target anything that moves. Sir, we cannot locate the enemy platforms. They are hidden among debris fields, asteroids, and what appear to be commercial satellites. Our targeting systems cannot distinguish threats from background objects. On the tactical display, red markers indicated thousands of incoming projectiles. They came from every direction. Above, below, from the sides. There was no safe angle, no clear escape route. Evasive maneuvers. Get us out of this kill zone. The helmsman struggled with the controls. Commander, we have incoming fast movers. Thousands of them. Small craft approaching at high speed. Vexcar pulled up the sensor data and felt his blood run cold. Drones. Millions of small autonomous fighters, each one expendable, each one moving with perfect coordination. They swarmed toward his fleet like insects toward light. Point defense systems engaged those drones. The defensive weapons on the collective ships opened fire, spraying the void with energy blasts and fragmentation rounds. Hundreds of drones exploded. Then thousands. But for every one destroyed, 10 more took its place. They kept coming, an endless wave of metal and purpose. The drones reached the outer ships first. They attached to hulls, targeting engines and weapon arrays. Small explosions rippled across the warships as critical systems failed. Some drones carried shaped charges that burned through armor. Others released electromagnetic pulses that fried electronics. Still others simply rammed into sensor clusters and communication arrays at full speed. In the Earth Command bunker, Admiral James Richardson watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The screens showed real-time data from thousands of platforms scattered throughout the combat zone. Enemy fleet reduced by 42%, Colonel David Morrison reported, his fingers dancing across his console. Their formation has completely collapsed. They're trying to retreat. General Patricia Hayes smiled coldly. Activate the minefields. Block their exit vectors. I want every escape route sealed. On the tactical display, new red dots appeared, surrounding the enemy fleet. The mines had been floating dormant for weeks, indistinguishable from normal space debris. Now they activated, creating a wall of explosives between the collective armada and open space. 3 enemy ships attempted to break through. The mines detected their approach and detonated in sequence, creating a cascading wave of destruction. The ships vanished in brilliant flashes of light. Dr. Robert Clark checked his instruments. Nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers are ready to fire. Targets locked on their command ships. Fire, James ordered simply. Deep in hidden facilities on several moons and asteroids, nuclear warheads detonated inside specialized chambers. The explosions pumped enormous amounts of energy into laser arrays for a single, devastating pulse. Invisible beams of concentrated X-rays crossed the battlefield in microseconds, striking the largest enemy warships. The command vessel's shields, already weakened by kinetic impacts, failed completely. The X-ray beams penetrated deep into the ship's cores, cooking electronics and vaporizing internal systems. The mighty flagships of the collective fleet became floating tombs, their crews dead before they could even understand what had killed them. Vexcar felt the Dominion's fist lurch violently. Explosions echoed through the corridors. His crew screamed as systems failed around them. Hull breaches on decks 5 through 12. Engineering is not responding. Life support failing. Thrall looked at his commander with wide, terrified eyes. Sir, we have lost 68% of the fleet. Our shields are at 15%. Weapons are offline. The humans, they planned this. They knew we were coming. They were ready. Vexkar stared at the view screen, watching his armada die. The humans had not fought with honor. They had not met his fleet in open battle. They had simply created a killing field and waited for their enemy to walk into it. It was brilliant. It was ruthless. It was utterly devastating. Send a surrender signal, Vexkar said quietly. Broadcast on all frequencies. Tell them we yield. Thrall activated the communications array. The surrender message transmitted outward, desperately seeking any human who would listen. No response came. Instead, another wave of kinetic strikes hammered into the remaining ships. The humans were not interested in surrender. They were not taking prisoners. They were sending a message to the entire galaxy, written in the burning wreckage of the collective fleet. James watched the last enemy ships break apart under sustained fire. 72 hours after the first shot, the battle was over. 10,000 warships reduced to debris and frozen corpses drifting in Mars orbit. Cease fire, he ordered. All platforms stand down. The command center fell silent. They had done it. Against an enemy that had conquered hundreds of worlds, humanity had not just survived. They had won completely and utterly. Patricia broke the silence. Casualty report shows minimal losses. Some automated platforms destroyed. No human casualties. David nodded slowly. The defense network is still 93% operational. They never even identified our main weapons. James stood and looked at the debris field on the screen. Now comes the hard part. We need to make sure the galaxy understands what happened here. The debris field stretched across thousands of kilometers of space. Twisted metal, frozen bodies, and the shattered remains of what had been the most feared armada in the galaxy drifted silently in the cold darkness. Not a single collective ship remained intact. Not a single escape pod had been allowed to flee. Admiral James Richardson stood in the command center, staring at the screens showing the aftermath. 3 days. It had taken only 3 days to destroy an enemy that had conquered worlds for centuries. General Patricia Hayes approached him with a data pad. Final casualty count is confirmed. We lost 47 automated platforms, 16 drone control stations, and some scattered satellites. Total human casualties, 0. James nodded slowly. The victory was complete, almost too complete. That was precisely the point. Colonel David Morrison joined them, carrying a secured case. We have successfully cracked their communication protocols. The salvage teams recovered their main transmission array mostly intact. We can broadcast using their own network. How far will it reach? James asked. Every collective world. Every relay station. Every ship in their fleet across the galaxy. David paused. But it will not stop there. Their communication network connects to dozens of other species, trading partners, rival empires, neutral parties. If we send a message through their system, half the galaxy will receive it within a week. Dr. Robert Clark was already at his workstation, preparing the transmission package. I have compiled all the combat footage from our platforms. Every angle, every moment of the battle. Unedited and raw. Patricia looked concerned. Are we sure we want to show them everything? We will be revealing our capabilities, our tactics, our technology. James turned to face her. That is exactly what we want to show them. We want every species out there to see what happens when someone comes to Earth looking for an easy conquest. He gestured to the debris field on the screen. We want them to see this and decide that maybe attacking humanity is not worth the risk. David opened the case, revealing the communication equipment they had salvaged and modified. The question is, what message do we send with the footage? James had been thinking about this for 3 days. Something simple. Something clear. No threats, no boasting, just the truth. Robert pulled up a text editor on his screen. I am ready to draft it. James spoke slowly, choosing each word carefully. Earth is claimed. We did not seek conflict, but we prepared for it. Come in peace or do not come at all. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the message. It was simple, direct, and when paired with the footage of the destroyed armada, absolutely terrifying. Perfect, Patricia said quietly. Robert added the text to the transmission package and began the upload process. The message will be broadcast in 147 languages, including every known spacefaring species. The footage will show the complete destruction of the collective fleet, time-stamped and verified to prevent claims of fabrication. David activated the salvage transmission array. Broadcasting in 3, 2, 1. Message sent. The signal flashed out into space, traveling at the speed of light toward the nearest collective relay station. From there, it would spread across their entire network, jumping from system to system, reaching every corner of known space. On the collective homeworld, the High Council gathered in their great chamber. They had lost contact with the invasion fleet 3 days ago. Every attempt to reach Commander Vexkar had failed. The silence was deeply troubling. Perhaps their communication systems malfunctioned, suggested one council member, though his voice carried no conviction. 10,000 ships do not all lose communication at once, replied another. The chamber's main display suddenly activated without anyone touching the controls. The council members jumped back in alarm as footage began to play. They watched in horror as their mighty armada was torn apart. They saw ships explode under kinetic strikes. They watched drones swarm over capital vessels. They witnessed the complete and utter annihilation of their fleet by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. The message appeared at the end, simple and devastating: Earth is claimed. We did not seek conflict, but we prepared for it. Come in peace or do not come at all. The chamber fell into shocked silence. Finally, the eldest council member spoke, his voice barely a whisper. How did primitives destroy our greatest fleet? They were not primitives, another replied, staring at the frozen image of Earth on the screen. We were fools. We saw what we wanted to see. They showed us what they wanted us to see. The message spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On hundreds of worlds, leaders and military commanders watched the footage in stunned disbelief. The collective armada, feared and respected across countless systems, had been destroyed in 3 days by a species most had never heard of. On Tarvos Prime, a trading hub where dozens of species mingled, the footage played on every public screen. Aliens of all shapes and sizes stopped to watch, their conversations dying away as they witnessed the battle. The humans did this? One merchant asked in disbelief. Apparently, his companion replied. They have announced themselves to the galaxy. On worlds that had been conquered by the collective, enslaved populations watched the footage in secret. Hope, long dead, began to stir in their hearts. If the humans could defeat the collective, perhaps they could too. In the halls of rival empires and powerful federations, military strategists studied every frame of the footage, analyzing human tactics and technology. Earth had gone from unknown to extremely dangerous in a single broadcast. And on Earth itself, James Richardson stood looking up at the stars, knowing that humanity's place in the galaxy had changed forever. They were no longer alone. They were no longer unknown. They were no longer prey. 6 months had passed since the battle at Mars. Admiral James Richardson stood in the rebuilt command center, now relocated to a space station orbiting Earth. Through the massive viewport he could see his home planet below, blue and green and beautiful. The world that had nearly been invaded now sparkled peacefully in the sunlight. But peace, James knew, was always temporary. General Patricia Hayes approached, carrying a tablet filled with reports. Her expression was thoughtful as she handed it to him. The diplomatic requests keep coming. 37 different species have reached out in the last month alone. Trade agreements, technology exchanges, defensive alliances. Everyone wants to be humanity's friend now. James scrolled through the list. Species he had never heard of 6 months ago were offering gifts, resources, even military support. And the collective? Silent. Their empire is fracturing. 5 worlds have declared independence in the last 3 months. Rebellions are spreading across their territory. Our message inspired more than we realized. Patricia paused, looking out at Earth. We broke them, James. Not just their fleet but their reputation. No one fears them anymore. Colonel David Morrison joined them at the viewport, his weathered face showing rare satisfaction. The shipyards are ahead of schedule. The Defiant launches in 2 months. Our first real warship, designed to take the fight beyond our solar system if needed. James studied the construction data on the tablet. The Defiant was nothing like the hidden defensive platforms that had destroyed the collective fleet. This was a true warship, built with technology humanity had developed over 15 years of secret preparation. It carried railguns that could punch through any known shield, drone bays that held thousands of autonomous fighters, and engines that could cross star systems in weeks rather than months. Just one ship? James asked. David smiled. For now. The Resolute and Vigilant will follow in 6 months. We are building an actual fleet, not just hiding weapons in asteroids anymore. Dr. Robert Clark hurried over, his face flushed with excitement. You need to see this. We just received a data package from the Kelvin Confederacy. They are offering us their complete star charts, sensor network access, and intelligence reports on potential threats in our region of space. In exchange for what? Patricia asked suspiciously. Nothing. They say it is a gift to welcome us to the galactic community. Robert pulled up the data on a nearby screen. This is incredible information, James. Locations of hostile species, safe trade routes, wormhole networks we did not know existed. With this, we can navigate the galaxy like we have been exploring it for centuries. James studied the star charts carefully. Red zones marked dangerous territories. Yellow zones indicated political instability. Green zones showed safe regions for exploration and trade. Humanity's solar system was marked in blue, surrounded by a buffer zone that other species were apparently avoiding. They are afraid of us, he said quietly. Yes, Patricia agreed. The galaxy watched us destroy the collective in 3 days. They saw footage of our weapons, our tactics, our absolute refusal to show mercy to invaders. We terrified them. David pointed to several red zones near human space. These species here, the Corvin Empire and the Draxus clans, they were reportedly planning their own invasions of Earth. According to the intelligence reports, they have both cancelled those plans and pulled their fleets back to defensive positions. James felt the weight of responsibility settle over him once again. 6 months ago, humanity had been alone, unknown, and vulnerable. Now they were feared, respected, and surrounded by species that wanted either their friendship or wanted to avoid their wrath. What about threats? He asked. Real threats, not species that can be deterred. Robert pulled up another section of the data. The Kelvin Confederacy warns of 3 major concerns. First, the hive swarms in the outer rim. They are not intelligent in the way we understand it, just endless numbers consuming everything in their path. Second, the machine collective, artificial intelligence that views organic life as inefficient. Third, something they call the Void Walkers, but there is very little information about them. Just warnings to avoid certain regions of space. James absorbed this information silently. Humanity had won one battle, but the galaxy was vast and filled with dangers they were only beginning to understand. Patricia seemed to read his thoughts. We are not the same species we were 6 months ago, James. We announced ourselves to the galaxy by destroying those who thought we were easy prey. We showed them that humans do not roll over and die when threatened. David nodded in agreement. The defensive network is expanding. New platforms are being built throughout the solar system. We are developing better weapons, faster ships, stronger shields. And now we have allies offering us knowledge and technology. James turned from the viewport to face his command staff. Behind them, dozens of officers worked at their stations, monitoring everything from sensor networks to diplomatic channels. Earth's unified military command had grown from a secret bunker to a sophisticated operation that rivaled anything the older galactic powers possessed. We did not choose to enter the galactic stage this way, James said. We would have preferred peaceful first contact, diplomatic exchanges, gradual integration into the wider community. But that is not what happened, Patricia finished for him. We got an invasion fleet instead. And we showed them what humans do to invaders. Through the viewport, James could see construction crews working on the outer defense ring. New satellites were being deployed. Railgun platforms were being positioned. Drone factories were being built on the Moon and Mars. Humanity was no longer hiding its strength. They were displaying it openly, making sure everyone who looked at Earth understood that this world was defended. The galaxy is watching us, David observed, wondering what we will do next. Some hope we will be peaceful traders and explorers. Others fear we will become conquerors ourselves. James pulled up an image of the Defiant under construction. The warship gleamed in the reflected light of Earth, a symbol of humanity's determination to never again be vulnerable. We will be neither prey nor predator, he said firmly. We will be survivors. We will explore, we will trade, we will make allies. But we will never forget what almost happened here. We will never lower our guard. And if anyone else comes to Earth looking for an easy conquest, he did not need to finish the sentence. They all understood. The debris field at Mars was still there, a permanent warning to anyone who might have aggressive intentions toward humanity. Patricia smiled slightly. Peace through strength. Peace through preparation, James corrected. We got lucky with the collective. We had 15 years to prepare after capturing that scout probe. We might not get that lucky again. So we build, we learn, we grow stronger. We make alliances with species who share our values. We gather intelligence on potential threats. And we make absolutely certain that the next time someone threatens Earth, we are ready. Robert brought up a new display showing planned exploration missions. The Defiant first voyage will take it to the Kelvin Confederacy homeworld. A diplomatic mission but also a show of force. Let them see what we have built. Good, James approved. Let the galaxy see that humanity is not hiding anymore. We are here, we are strong, and we are not going anywhere. Outside the viewport, Earth continued its eternal rotation, unaware of the fundamental change that had occurred. Humanity had taken its first violent step onto the galactic stage. The species that had once looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone now knew the truth. They were not alone. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and filled with species both friendly and hostile. But humanity had proven something important in those 3 days of battle at Mars. They had proven they could survive. And that made all the difference.